A man gets knocked out cold on his own porch by a small, fast-moving UAP. In Colorado, security footage caught a strange, skinny creature walking around a woman's driveway. No one knows what it was. And a floating, shape-shifting figure was caught on camera in Mexico, gliding across a yard while nearby dogs completely lose it. These are times real aliens were caught on surveillance cameras. Ladies and gents, for the first time on the channel, I believe, we have a mysterious flying object knocking a man out cold right on his front porch. This is one of the wildest clips I've ever seen doing videos like this. So it starts off pretty normal. We have some home security footage capturing a guy walking into his house. About 10 seconds go by though, and then this happens. So did you catch that? We might have to slow this one down so you can see it. So this small glowing object flies across the lawn at crazy speed, zips into the doorway, and then the dude just falls back onto the grass, like totally out cold. The way he just flops back and ragdolls like that, it's insane. If this video is staged, then this guy must be a stuntman or something, because that was a gnarly fall. This happened a couple years ago in La Junta, Colorado, and it's still one of the weirdest pieces of home security footage on the internet. So a woman named Vivian Gomez said that her porch camera picked something up late one night. The next morning, she checked the footage and saw what you're looking at here. Nobody actually knows what it was. Dobby from Harry Potter, maybe, or an alien? Vivian posted the video on Facebook and it exploded. It racked up over 10 million views in less than a week, and soon big news stations were showing up to cover it. Vivian said, "I showed my son and we were both just saying, what the heck is that?" She didn't feel super threatened by whatever the thing was, but she did admit she fixed her screen door after, just to be on the safe side. The creature was never seen again, and Vivian says she still has no idea what she caught on camera. In her own words, the verdict is still out. Some people think aliens are out there somewhere. Others believe they're already here, living among us. And this security footage from Mexico has a lot of people wondering if that might actually be true. The video shows this weird floating thing drifting over some bushes and landing in someone's yard. Then it slowly glides off, up the hill and onto the road, shifting and changing shape as it moves, growing into something that almost kind of looks like a person, maybe? Now, normally you'd think this was just a trick of the camera or some cheap editing, but here's the part that really got people talking. The dogs in the yard saw the whole thing. They absolutely freaked out, barking at it, then just standing there utterly confused. The video blew up on Twitter, or X, and a lot of people in the comments seemed convinced. Nobody's been able to explain what this thing is. Whatever it was though, it definitely shook those dogs. This one's pretty wild. The security camera in Ojai, California caught what looks like a glowing thing hovering right in front of the lens, and just a few minutes later, a glowing orb shoots up into the sky. The footage was shot using infrared, which means even if the UFO was using some kind of cloaking, the camera would have still picked it up. According to Scott C. Waring, a well-known UFO enthusiast and blogger who runs the site UFO Sightings Daily, according to him, the UFO took off into the distance right before sunrise, almost like it was trying to leave before anyone could see it in daylight. The person who captured the video said it happened sometime between 3 and 3:30 a.m. It started with a huge bright flash of light coming from a dried-out riverbed across from their house. Place with no power lines, no street lights, and no electronics nearby. After that flash, this bright bluish-white orb just showed up out of nowhere and slowly started rising into the sky. What's interesting is that you can see the first light of sunrise creeping over the horizon, but the orb isn't anywhere near it. The light from the sun and the light from the orb are totally different. The person who posted the video said, "I would really like any information on any reasonable explanations that could explain the phenomena in the video." This one comes from a construction site in Cathedral City, California, back in July of 2018. So a night security guard named Douglas Benfield was on shift when he spotted something weird on one of the monitors. What he saw was a super bright object slowly rising from the construction site, hovering for a second in midair, and then suddenly blasting off at crazy speed. Douglas, who was 48 at the time, said, "I was sitting there and everything just felt weird all of a sudden. Can't really explain." He said out of the corner of his eye he noticed something strange on the monitor. "So I played it back and couldn't believe my eyes. I kept watching it over and over again," he said. Right after that, he recorded the footage straight off the security screen with his phone and texted it to his son, who simply responded with, "WTF is that?" Douglas never showed the clip to anyone else at the time because life got busy, but when he came across it again later, he realized it was just too weird not to show, saying, "I cannot explain what is going on in that video, but it's extremely strange. I've watched it so many times and it still gives me chills." Carlos de los Santos was a young, experienced pilot flying back to Mexico City. The skies were clear, everything was normal, and he was cruising along when suddenly he saw something out of the corner of his eye on the right wing. A metallic saucer-like object. Before he had time to process it, another one showed up on the left wing. Then a third came barreling toward him head-on, barely missing the nose of his plane. And then something truly horrifying happened. His controls were unresponsive. He couldn't steer, he couldn't descend, it was like the plane was just flying itself. Carlos radioed in, told air traffic control that he'd lost command of the aircraft and was being followed by unknown objects. He thought he was done for. But then, just like that, the discs vanished and the controls kicked back in. He safely managed to land back in Mexico City, shaken but alive. Aviation authorities even checked the plane afterward. No mechanical failure. Way before UFO sightings were trending on the internet, or even before planes existed really, we had Jose Bonilla, a Mexican astronomer who'd been trying to study the sun when something odd happened. In 1883, while observing sunspots from the Zacatecas Observatory, Bonilla noticed something strange. There were hundreds of dark shapes moving across the sun. Fast moving, oddly shaped, and all heading in the same direction. So he did what any astronomer would do. He started taking photos. Bonilla managed to capture over 300 of these strange objects in front of the sun using the technology of the time, which was basically a big old camera strapped to a telescope. He published his findings in a scientific journal, describing them as some kind of flying bodies. But he didn't say aliens or anything like that, he just logged what he saw. Over time, people came up with all kinds of theories. Some said it was just birds, maybe geese flying at high altitudes. Others said maybe meteors or debris. But here's the thing. How many geese are flying in tight formation that high up at a speed fast enough to cross the sun that quickly and do it all 300 plus times? It seems weird. Plus, I feel like this guy would have known, he would have seen birds up there before. He was always looking at the sky. Today, some UFO researchers point to Bonilla's photos as possibly the first photographic evidence of unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP. This one takes us back to 1997, peak VHS era, when a resident of the Las Lomas neighborhood in Mexico City filmed something bizarre floating in the sky. What you see is a metallic-looking disc-shaped object kind of wobbling around mid-air. Doesn't zoom off or flash lights, it just slowly drifts like it's cautiously observing. The camera operator is clearly shocked too. You can hear it in their voice. They're reacting in real time to something that genuinely doesn't look normal. Now, skeptics were quick to point out that the UFO looks like it could be suspended by a string, and yeah, the wobbliness doesn't help, but here's the thing, it's floating in open sky, far off in the distance. If this was some cheap hoax, it was weirdly well executed for the late 90s. Others think the wobble might actually be evidence for the thing being real. Maybe it was damaged, maybe it was malfunctioning. Whatever it was, it's still one of Mexico's more debated UFO clips. So this one's basically Mexico's version of Roswell. The story goes like this. On August 25th of 1974, a small civilian aircraft, a Cessna, disappeared near a town called Coyame, right along the US-Mexico border. Not long after, both Mexican and American military forces were spotted moving into the area. The reason? A supposed mid-air collision between that Cessna and something else. Something not from around here. According to different reports and whistleblower-style retellings, the Mexican military was first on the scene. They located 2 crash sites, one for the plane and one for the unknown object. Eerily, the recovery team that got to the UFO was later found dead, with no obvious injuries. The bodies were said to be removed by a convoy that mysteriously disappeared, possibly intercepted by American forces who crossed the border and took everything, including the craft. Of course, that's the wild version. The official story is that the Cessna was part of a smuggling operation and just simply went down, but some think there's just way too much smoke here for there not to be fire. Military convoys, radio silence, surveillance planes. Something weird happened out in the desert that night, and if the US did swoop in and grab the wreckage, well, it wouldn't be the first time. At number 1, we've got a UFO hotbed that's been capturing people's attention for decades. Popocatépetl, one of Mexico's most active volcanoes. It's a bit of an anomaly when it comes to UFO sightings. This towering mountain, standing at over 17,000 feet, sits in a seismic and volcanic zone, which has some thinking that maybe earthquakes and eruptions might attract UFOs. Maybe the atmosphere around the volcano creates these strange, unpredictable phenomena that seem out of place, and maybe aliens are just curious about what's happening down below. Either way, there's no shortage of sightings here. Witnesses have described seeing strange objects, sometimes appearing near the summit, and it's not just a couple of isolated reports. There are multiple photographs showing strange lights or craft in the area. And sure, some of these sightings might just be planes, drones, or natural stuff, but others remain totally unexplained. The National UFO Reporting Center, or NUFORC, has recorded more than 2,000 UFO sightings just in the first half of 2025, noticeable jump from previous years. According to their data, there were 2,174 sightings in that 6-month stretch, compared to 1,492 in 2024. NUFORC is a non-profit that collects UFO reports and looks into unexplained cases, and they warn that the numbers probably only scratch the surface. These figures likely represent only a small number of actual views, said Christian Stepien, NUFORC's chief technology officer. He estimates that only about 5% of UFO sightings ever get reported. Many of the reports they received this year actually describe events from years or even decades ago because of the stigma around coming forward. The reports come from all kinds of people, from ordinary citizens to air traffic controllers, police officers. UFOs have been grabbing headlines a lot more recently, especially after David Grush testified in 2023 that the Pentagon had been running a secret UFO tracking program. And since then, other people in the military and the government have come forward backing him, saying the Department of Defense hasn't been fully honest with the public or Congress about what they know. I'm gonna guess a lot of you have heard the recent buzz about 3I Atlas, but for those not in the know, there's a strange object from outside our solar system called 3I Atlas, which has made its way into our solar system, and scientists are flipping out about it. Harvard professor Avi Loeb has even come out saying it could be alien technology because of its weird path past Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, which he said showed, quote, precision. NASA first detected it on July 1st, and it's only the third known object from another star system to visit us, after Oumuamua in 2017 and Comet Borisov in 2019. The object is moving insanely fast, more than 37 miles per second, so launching a new spacecraft to catch it is basically impossible. A study from Michigan State University calculated that a mission would have needed to launch at 15 miles per second on the day of the discovery just to reach it. Instead, Loeb has suggested redirecting a spacecraft that's already in space, like NASA's Juno probe. He thinks Juno could use its remaining fuel to intercept 3I Atlas when the object passes about 34 million miles from Jupiter in March of 2026. Florida Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna supports this idea. In a letter to NASA, she wrote, "It is recommended that NASA conduct a study to assess how much fuel is left in Juno's engine, and I support an extension of the Juno mission at least until mid-March 2026 at a cost of about $15 million per 6 months from the current expiration date of mid-September 2025. Not everyone agrees though. Jason Wright of Penn State said Juno does not have enough fuel to visit 3I Atlas. Its main engine is also malfunctioning. Researchers are still exploring other options, like redirecting Mars Odyssey or the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. Atsuhiro Yaganuma from Michigan State said it would require a lot of fuel and a lot of rapid mobilization from people here on Earth, but getting close to an interstellar object could be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Back in June in Pembroke, Massachusetts, a woman named Colleen McCormick saw something while hanging out in her backyard. Around 9 p.m., she was just sitting by her hot tub when she noticed this weirdly shaped object in the sky, plummeting toward the ground. She managed to capture it on camera. It looked like it was on fire or something. She ran to the front of her house, expecting to hear a loud crash when it hit, but the blinking object quickly disappeared from view. "My heart was pounding because I just looked up," she said. Well, the FAA weighed in, but they didn't really have a whole lot to add. They said they hadn't received any reports of debris in the area and generally don't comment on third-party videos like this one. The Pembroke Police Department and the fire department reported no signs of wreckage or other reports in the neighborhood either. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna opened up about a weird UFO encounter from her time in the Air Force during her appearance on Joe Rogan. She explained that while she was stationed at the Portland Air National Guard Base as an airfield management specialist, there was a strange, quote, airspace incursion that caught her attention. There had been an airspace incursion that had taken place when I was still at the Guard, and I remember talking to some of the pilots about it, and I was like, what was that? She said. Even though Luna talked to the pilots, none of them really wanted to go into detail about what they saw. Still, one F-scene pilot did hint that it was unusual. From what I gathered, she said, he didn't want to get taken off flight status and was like, I really can't discuss it, adding that the pilot admitted the object essentially outperformed them and couldn't really be identified. Luna said the event made her suspect it was an unidentified anomalous phenomenon, or UAP. She also talked about the stigma around reporting things like this in the military, where admitting to seeing something weird could hurt your career or security clearance. She continued saying, quote, what I can tell you is, when you have thousands upon thousands of people from around the planet throughout time that have reported something, to say those people are crazy, that's a disinformation campaign to get people to shut up about it. Now, she leads a congressional task force investigating UAPs. Luna's pushing for more transparency. I'd like to see the federal government roll out some of the stuff we've been given access to, because I think that information belongs in the hands of the American people, she said. Back in 2018, something strange was caught on camera, but the footage stayed hidden for years. It was finally released to the public in January of 2024. The object was seen flying over a US military base in Iraq and was tracked using military infrared radar. It moved across the base and slowly lowered itself into a nearby body of water. About 17 minutes later, it popped back up and shot off at an unbelievable speed. The Pentagon officially marked it as a UAP, meaning they don't know what it was. One of the strangest things about the object was that it kept changing color. It would go from kind of see-through to solid black. And since the video was filmed using infrared, these color changes actually show that the object's temperature was shifting really fast. It was heating up and cooling down so quickly that the radar struggled to keep up with it. Dr. Matthew Zadegas, a physics professor at the University of Albany, said it was changing temperature faster than any known object. About 3 years ago, some really creepy security camera footage started making the rounds online. We see this weird, pale creature moving around in the backyard of an apartment complex in Moorhead, Kentucky. The video was caught by a CCTV camera in the area. It was first shared by Paranormality magazine on X. In the 33-second clip, you can see this tall, skinny, human-like figure crouching low near the back of the yard. It slowly creeps forward, looking around like it's checking to see if anyone's watching, then heads toward the homeowner's car. The footage blew up online. People from all over the world started guessing what the pale figure could be and where it came from. Some thought it looked like an alien, others said it looked more like a rake. No one's figured out exactly what it was, but what do you think? Just what in the hell is this thing? Now, I don't have a lot of info on this one. I believe the image first showed up on Reddit about a year back. User itchypalp_88 wrote that it was sent to them by their neighbor in Vacaville, California, who'd caught it on their Ring camera at a trailer park backing up to a creek. As for what it is, hairless cat, the chupacabra, and alien, those big black eyes definitely kind of make it look like one. As weird and freaky as this thing is, though, it is oddly cute in a kind of ugly way. You know what I mean. Now, this next one is clearly a drone, but doesn't make the story any less creepy. So about 5 years ago in British Columbia, Canada, a couple had a pretty creepy run-in with what they thought was just a drone, except this one got way too close for comfort. Around 11:30 p.m. on Friday, September 25th, a man named Ryan Frank noticed something weird flying right outside his window. It was a drone actively watching the house. It was next to the car looking in the window and then hovered right in front of me, Ryan said. It came so close to the window at one point it cut the strings on 2 hanging hummingbird feeders. He said the drone hovered outside his house for just under 5 minutes. I threw a beer at it at some point, but I missed, he added. Eventually the drone flew off. The next morning Ryan checked his security footage and showed it to his girlfriend, Shayla Skates. Perfect Canadian name there. Anyway, she'd been asleep when it all happened, and she was pretty freaked out. I feel violated, she said. Who knows what this person was recording of me? How many times this drone has been recording my house, me, my child? Turns out this wasn't an isolated thing. When Shayla posted about it on Facebook, at least half a dozen people commented saying they'd seen similar drones snooping around homes in the area. In fact, just the year before, a woman named Dominique Embury had her own weird encounter. On December 18th of 2019, Dominic saw a small black drone hovering outside her window. Her security footage showed it carefully circling their cars, flying right up to their license plates, then sitting there watching her in the living room for almost 2 minutes before finally flying away. Ryan said the drone he saw was about 12 inches wide and 12 inches deep, with 4 propellers, battery pack, and a camera strapped to it. This footage was released by the AARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, a group inside the US Department of Defense that's specifically in charge of looking into UAPs. The clip was made public during a US Senate hearing and has been part of their official investigation records. It was captured by an MQ-9 Reaper drone, which is a high-tech surveillance drone usually used by the military for tracking and reconnaissance. Clearly, we can see a small, round object flying across the frame. The AARO has confirmed they still don't know what the thing is. They've officially labeled it as a genuine UAP. They also said it's not the first time they've caught orbs like this on camera. There have been other sightings of similar objects, but so far, no one's been able to explain what they are or where they come from. A strange UFO sighting was captured over New Jersey recently. In a 13-second clip shot near Atlantic City on a Sunday night back in December, a strange white light blinks in the sky before suddenly vanishing. Family members who were watching the light in the sky were completely baffled by what they were looking at. The thing just kind of hovers in the sky, slightly flickering before it looks like it disappears. Turns out that's not exactly the case. A man named Tim Janicki, who received the footage from a friend, posted it online with the heading reading, "I don't trust random videos I see on X, but this is 100% real." So this video has been getting shared around quite a bit. One commenter pointed out, "You can see it didn't just disappear, but it took off with incredible speed. There's a small flash of light to the left as it leaves. Humans can't produce the energy required to go that fast, especially from standstill." And that's true. If you look closely, you do see this really quick blip of light appear in the upper left of the screen right after the strange orb of light looks like it vanishes. Other people commented similar things, like one person saying, "No flight system we have right now can go from stationary to warp drive in an instant. These flight characteristics are well beyond light years ahead of us." Now, this is just one incident in a long list of strange sightings in the sky over New Jersey, which led the FAA to briefly limit drone flights in some areas. The FBI and other federal agencies have been looking into a bunch of the reports apparently, and they claim that so far they haven't found anything pointing to a national security threat. Again, so they say. This footage here was posted to Reddit by user Yogurt Closet Flat 5701 just a couple weeks ago with the caption, "This just happened above Brookville Boulevard, Snake Road in Queens, New York, right next to JFK Airport. We looked up and there were 4 orange orbs in formation in what is supposed to be a no-fly zone. They then started to disappear. Did anybody else in the area witness this?" End of post. And that's a good question. Any New Yorkers in the comments see this as well? Let us know down in the comments here. There are some interesting comments from other witnesses on the post though. One user, Zora Octavia, wrote, "Lived here for 14 years with planes flying by all day, every day. They fly so low it feels like you can almost touch them. I know what they look like when they come in to land and take off. I have never seen anything like this." ever. And that's not the only strange orange orb that's been spotted in the sky recently. On December 26th, a Redditor by the name of Hell84 posted this footage. The video was shot in central Georgia. A father had gone to take out the trash when he spotted the strange orb in the sky. He noticed something, quote, bright and orange overhead through the pines. He pointed it out to his son and they both just stared at it for several minutes before deciding to film it. The father shared the video on Reddit. In the clip we see this glowing orange orb gliding across the sky, weaving between the tops of pine trees. At one point, the orb looks like it dims and then vanishes entirely. As Hell84 wrote, "When I first observed it, the light was huge, but it was way off, like half a mile. As it got closer, it seemed to dim but stayed the same luminous lighting. As I walked further to capture it, I thought, what if it was trying to evade me?" A bunch of Redditors wondered if it could be a plane, but the user didn't think so, saying it made no sound, unlike the planes that frequently fly over his home. And we're back to New Jersey with another set of strange lights in the sky captured on camera recently. A YouTuber named CJ Faison recently posted footage showing what he believes are drones flying in, quote, deliberate formations off the coast of New Jersey over the Atlantic Ocean. He took a boat 26 miles out from the Pine Barrens to get the footage using a night vision camera. In the video, he'd gone out to get footage of the mysterious drones that people have been spotting in the skies over the last couple months. He did manage to capture a bunch of these blinking lights in the sky. Some are stationary, some are seen moving through the sky, some appear and disappear completely, and some of the drones seem to zip across the horizon at incredible speeds. It is definitely odd. CJ wrote in the video description, "The drones in New Jersey have been seen coming from the ocean for several weeks. We found UAP drones in the middle of the ocean 100%. This is something they don't want you to see." Now, sure, people have access to drones nowadays. There are more things in the sky than there ever have been in history, but it seems like people are spotting particularly bright, rather large objects moving at speeds way too fast to be your over-the-counter drone. And again, the FBI is getting involved. They've investigated around 5,000 reports about these drones, claiming that about 100 of them are considered credible. As of now, there have been no clear answers from authorities on who's behind the drones or what they're up to. This next report comes out again from New Jersey. This time, it's not just lights in the sky though. Whatever this object was, it actually affected the clock in a family's car. In early December, a family reported a strange effect while following one of these strange crafts that people have been seeing in the sky. As they drove along, the car's clock suddenly changed time, then went back to normal once they drove away. Local law enforcement in Morris County insists that there's no known threat to public safety, but residents are still trying to figure out what's going on themselves. There's even a Facebook group with over 17,000 members exchanging info on these sightings. One local software engineer, Rich Dunjewski, thinks the clock change might be a clue. He commented, "Many newer cars get their clock time from GPS satellites," adding that the drones could be using GPS jamming or spoofing. He went on to say that if these drones are using, quote, GPS jamming, then it's plausible the car would follow the signal and change the clock. FAA contractor David Lombardo agreed, saying these drones likely have electronic interference capabilities. Astronomers have been hunting for signs of life beyond Earth, and K218b is a planet about 124 light years away that's been a big focus. In 2023 and again in April of 2025, researchers using the James Webb Space Telescope thought they spotted dimethyl sulfide, or DMS, in its atmosphere. And that's pretty cool, because it's a gas produced on Earth only by marine life. So the fact that it's showing up on a distant planet, that could be a sign of something. The April 2025 paper led by Niku Madasudan at Cambridge reported a 3 sigma confidence in the detection, meaning there was just a 0.3% chance that the signal was random. Madasudan called the moment profound, saying, quote, "However you put it, we are seeing new chemical processes on a planet that could be habitable." But some critics pointed out the analysis didn't fully account for other molecules or instrumental noise, and NASA didn't even release a press statement, saying that they'd need, quote, "follow-up studies and multiple converging lines of evidence to confirm true biosignatures and rule out false positives." A new NASA study published July 16th played it safe by looking at 4 4 fresh James Webb Telescope observations and using a method that lets different teams analyze the data separately and then update their conclusions as they go. The result shows that K2-18b has a lot of water in its atmosphere, along with methane and carbon dioxide, but they don't have enough evidence to say whether or not there could be life there yet. The man in the UK says he captured a UFO moving at hypersonic speeds while playing fetch with his dog. Andrew Clifton was out with his Labrador Dash in the Malvern Hills when he filmed himself throwing a frisbee. He didn't notice anything unusual at the time. It was moving so fast there was no way I could pick it up with a naked eye, he said. It wasn't until later, when he reviewed the footage at home, that he spotted whatever this thing is darting across the sky. He said, quote, "When I got home from dinner with friends later that day, I was reviewing the videos from the day and noticed something small. That's when I edited the video into slow motion and saw the object in full force for the first time." After sharing the video with his friends, they told him to post it in a UFO sightings Facebook group. The clip racked up millions of views online, especially when he shared it on X. Andrew admits he's not a hardcore believer, but thinks it's worth keeping an open mind. Personally, I think it's more likely to be some sort of military equipment that we don't know about. But it's true that whenever I watch it, I can't come up with a full answer as to what it is, he said. Now, the Malvern Hills have some big military bases nearby, so you could be onto something about the object being military related, but what do you all think? There was another pretty interesting UAP sighting recently in Massachusetts. Just the other day, on August 12th, the father and son in Taunton were stargazing when they spotted a strange white light in the sky around 10:30 p.m. They weren't alone. Similar sightings were reported in nearby towns like Avon, North Attleboro, and Sudbury. The National UFO Reporting Center received 4 videos from these areas, all showing the same mysterious light. Bassett Siddiqui, the father in Taunton, was using a telescope when he noticed the light. He said, "I look up and I see this orb with a cloud around it. So I kind of took out my phone and started recording it right away. It was kind of dropping down, and then from there, it kind of took a right and shot straight down." End quote. Now, we've talked a lot about recent updates on possible alien life, which makes this article from 2015 very interesting. Because at the time, NASA chief scientist Ellen Stoffen was pretty confident that we were on the verge of finding alien life, and was predicting that we'd have definitive evidence in 2025. She added, "We know where to look, we know how to look. We have the technology and we're on a path to implementing it. And so I think we're definitely on the road," end quote. And there are plenty of places to check. Europa and Ganymede, moons of Jupiter and Saturn's Enceladus all have oceans under ice. NASA's Curiosity rover has found organic molecules and nitrogen on Mars, which are the building blocks for life. Almost every star we look at has planets, and a lot of them could support life. American astrophysicist Paul Hertz summed it up, saying, "The Milky Way is basically a, quote, soggy place, with water and clouds between stars, around forming planets, and even in comets breaking apart. To actually find life, Ellen Stoffen says humans will probably need to go, saying, "I'm a field geologist. I go out and break open rocks and look for fossils. It's eventually going to take humans on the surface of Mars. Field geologists, astrobiologists, chemists, actually out there looking for that good evidence of life that we can bring back to Earth." In 2012, NASA's Hubble Space Telescope detected something shocking erupting from the surface of Jupiter's icy moon, Europa. Massive geysers of water vapor shot more than 100 miles into space, leaving astronomers stunned. This was not just, frozen ice sublimating into gas. These plumes are thought to be connected directly to a vast underground ocean scientists have long suspected is hidden beneath Europa's thick crust of ice. That ocean isn't small. In fact, it's believed to contain more than twice the amount of water here on Earth. So imagine the possibilities here. If you had a world covered in deep ocean, heating from below by volcanic activity and insulated by ice from above, you have a perfect laboratory for life. When scientists analyzed the composition of the plumes, they found signs of salts and organic molecules, the essential building blocks of biology. Some researchers have gone so far as to say Europa is one of the top places in the solar system to actually discover alien life. Every time those plumes erupt, it's like the moon is venting secrets from a hidden world. world. Saturn's small moon Enceladus was once thought to be little more than a frozen snowball drifting in space, but that all changed in 2005 when NASA's Cassini spacecraft made a pass over its south pole and saw massive jets of water vapor and ice crystals blasting into space. Cassini didn't just observe these plumes from a distance, it actually flew through them. Instruments on board detected hydrogen gas, methane, complex organic molecules. On Earth, this exact chemical mix is found around hydrothermal vents, deep under the ocean, places where bacteria and other strange organisms thrive without sunlight. The presence of hydrogen is especially important. It's the fuel source for microbes in these extreme Earth environments. Some scientists now believe that Enceladus may host similar ecosystems beneath its crust, with alien microbes living off chemical energy, just as they do here on Earth. Back to Europa, because this moon has more mysteries than most planets. In 1997, NASA's Galileo spacecraft detected oxygen in Europe's thin atmosphere. First, it seemed impossible. Oxygen is not an element that hangs around on its own. On Earth, oxygen exists in such abundance because of photosynthesis from plants and algae. So, what was it doing around Europa? Well, one explanation is that sunlight and Jupiter's intense radiation are constantly splitting water molecules on the surface ice, freeing up oxygen. But the sheer amount detected raised some questions. Was it really only the product of chemistry, or was it a possible sign of something more? If life were thriving below the surface, its presence might eventually alter the atmosphere in ways we could detect. The discovery of oxygen showed that Europa's environment is a lot more dynamic, possibly a lot more Earth-like than anyone thought. Saturn's largest moon, Titan, is one of the strangest worlds we've ever studied. It has rivers, lakes, and seas, but unlike Earth, those lakes are filled with liquid methane and ethane. Titan is also the only moon in the solar system with a thick atmosphere, and that atmosphere is loaded with nitrogen, making it strangely similar to our own composition. In 2010, NASA scientists announced something troubling. They found that hydrogen gas in Titan's atmosphere was mysteriously vanishing near the surface. This wasn't a minor fluctuation. The hydrogen seemed to be disappearing in ways that seemed to show it was being consumed. On Earth, microbes do exactly that. They take in hydrogen and use it as energy. Scientists began asking whether something similar might be happening on Titan. Could there be alien organisms living in Titan's methane lakes, consuming hydrogen and producing methane in the process? If so, it would mean Titan is not only habitable, but already inhabited. Europa is famous for the reddish-brown streaks that cross its surface, creating patterns that look like deep scars on the moon's face. For decades, these were assumed to be nothing more than cracks filled with salty ice, but in 2013, when researchers examined them more closely, they found something unexpected. The streaks contained organic compounds mixed with salts. On Earth, that type of chemistry is often linked to biological processes. Some astrobiologists have speculated that these red stains may be more than just geological features. They could be evidence of material leaking up from the hidden ocean below, carrying with it chemical traces of life. If microbes exist in Europa's subsurface sea, they may be leaving the fingerprints on the moon's very surface, right where we can see them. The possibility that these stains are biological in origin is pretty exciting. A strange UAP was captured on camera back in 2018, but the video was kept secret for years. It was just released to the public last year in January of 2024. The object was spotted flying over a US military base in Iraq and was tracked by a military infrared radar. It moved across the base before making a controlled descent into a body of water. About 17 minutes later, it reappeared and took off at an incredible speed. The Pentagon has officially classified it as a UAP. What caught a lot of attention was how quickly the object changed color. You'll notice that the object keeps switching from this semi-translucent look to black. And since the video was shot using infrared, the color changes indicate shifts in temperature. The object was changing temperature so fast that it actually made it difficult for the radar to even track. And according to Dr. Matthew Sadagas, a physics professor at the University of Albany, it was doing this, quote, faster than any known object. This next video comes from the YouTube channel Plant Abundance, who wrote in the description that he'd been outside doing some tree work when this bright object caught his eye. He watched it as it stayed stationary for about a minute and a half before fetching his camera. He caught the tail end of it before it drifted downward and faded out. Again, this is another recent clip posted on October 14th of 2024. Now the object is hard to make out. It's obviously pretty high up, but zooming in, it's definitely not a plane or a satellite. It doesn't even look like your typical drone. It looks like a spherical metallic object. So what is it? I don't know. What do you all think? This footage was taken a few years ago. It's another spherical flying orb. The AARO, the office within the US Department of Defense that handles UAPs, released the footage captured by an MQ-9 Reaper drone during a Senate hearing in the Middle East. The video shows an orb smoothly flying through the sky at a high speed. The AARO came out saying that they had no idea what it was, calling it a genuine UAP, but they also mentioned it was not the first time they'd seen something like it. On December 16th of 2024, tourists at Disney World in Orlando caught sight of a glowing red UFO streaking upward in the night sky. The object kinda looks like a falling star, but in reverse. The video made the rounds on TikTok with people commenting it was a UAP of extraterrestrial origin. Now, unlike a lot of the other stuff on this list, this one may have a very clear explanation, and while that explanation probably isn't aliens, it's still pretty cool. The glowing streak was probably a SpaceX rocket that launched that night. Falcon 9's reusable booster successfully landed in the Atlantic after 8.5 minutes. SpaceX was transporting a GPS satellite for the US military. There was a similar sighting near Disney on December 23rd, also very likely a SpaceX mission. So this final story comes from a new docu-series called Investigation Alien. Footage was captured showing a strange object descending into the English Channel. The series follows journalist George Knapp and his team, including underwater archaeologist Rory Kremer, as they dig into evidence of extraterrestrial life. During one of their expeditions off the coast of Normandy, they spotted an illuminated object about 200 yards away. At first, it was stationary, but then it sped off, only to return later, but at that point, most of the crew was asleep. Kremer, though, was on night watch, and he was able to capture the object on camera as it plummeted into the water. Knapp was shocked when he saw the footage. He returned Kremer for an explanation, and Kremer, who's been in the field for over 20 years, admitted, "I don't got any answers, do you?" He thought it might be a flare, but it didn't have the typical smoke. As the object disappeared into the water, Knapp suggested it could be tied to some sort of subterranean base. Kremer pointed out that local tribes in the region have long reported unexplained lights, which were often linked to gods. Now, it just wouldn't be right not to talk a bit about this recent congressional hearing on UAPs. Now, obviously, there was no physical evidence presented here, but there were some very interesting statements made by these men who are testifying under oath.
As such, I appreciate the need to protect certain sensitive intelligence and military information. I consider my oath to protect secrets as sacred, and I will always put the safety of the American people first.
The hearing, titled Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, Exposing the Truth, took place just last week, and there were 4 key experts, each with their own claims about the US government's involvement with UAPs, or unidentified aerial phenomena. Luis Elizondo, a former Pentagon official who ran a secret program studying UAPs, was on the panel. When Rep. Nancy Mace asked him directly if the US government had been involved in, quote, UAP crash retrieval programs, Elizondo didn't hesitate, responding yes. She followed up asking if these programs were aimed at identifying and reverse engineering alien craft. Elizondo's reply was again straightforward: yes. Elizondo also made it clear that the US isn't alone in this, stating advanced technologies not made by our government or any other government are monitoring sensitive military installations around the globe, end quote. So yeah, just who or what is behind these highly advanced technologies? Deep in the Nevada desert, there's a mysterious site that many believe holds some of the biggest secrets the US government doesn't want you to know about. S4. This is rumored to be a secretive military facility located near the infamous Area 51, and according to some whistleblowers, it's where alien technology is being stored, studied, and even reverse engineered. One of the most famous sources of info about S4 is of course Bob Lazar, a self-proclaimed physicist who claimed he worked at the base in the late 80s. Lazar said that his job at S4 was to reverse engineer extraterrestrial spacecraft, and he described seeing flying saucers with anti-gravity technology, and even said he had personally worked on one of these craft. In his interviews, Lazar gave detailed descriptions of the facility, including the idea that S4 was built into a mountain to remain hidden, and according to him, the base was divided into several hangars, each containing different alien ships, some of which were allegedly in working condition. On the night of March 24, 1967, Lieutenant Robert Salas was stationed deep underground at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana, overseeing a squadron of 10 nuclear missiles, but his missiles had just mysteriously lost power across the entire facility without warning. You would have to have sent individual signals to each missile, and within seconds we had no power, Salas said, adding that it was something the US military had no technology to counter at the time. The other odd part, moments before the malfunction, a security officer stationed on the surface had been calling Salas frantically. The officer described seeing a glowing, pulsating UFO, an oval-shaped craft with red-orange lights, flying in ways no human-made vehicle could. The object performed, quote, unusual controlled maneuvers, such as flying very fast, coming to a dead stop, then reversing course, and making 90-degree turns. After the UFO left, the officer was shaken, and a special investigations officer immediately told Salas never to speak of it. Just last year, in December of 2023, something bizarre happened over Langley Air Force Base in Virginia. For 17 straight nights, a fleet of mysterious drones appeared in the sky just after sunset and flew over restricted military airspace. According to former Air Force General Mark Kelly, the drones looked like constellations in the night sky, with the first one he saw being around 20 feet long, flying at speeds of over 100 kilometers per hour and cruising at 3,000 to 4,000 feet. The drones followed a precise pattern each night. The Pentagon investigated, suspecting they could have belonged to foreign agents, possibly from China or Russia, trying to spy on US military, but the drones didn't seem to pose an immediate threat, so the military couldn't just shoot them down. They were fearing risking, troops and civilians' lives. So they brainstormed for a bit, and they figured they could capture them with nets or find a way to jam their signals, but nothing seemed to work. Neptune's largest moon, Triton, is one of the coldest places in the entire solar system, but it has proven to be far from dead. When Voyager 2 flew past it in 1989, scientists were pretty shocked to discover active geysers spewing nitrogen gas into space. For such a distant, frozen world, this level of activity was pretty surprising. Years later, in 2018, reanalysis of the Voyager data suggested something even stranger. There were hints of phosphine gas in Triton's environment. On Earth, phosphine is rare and strongly associated with life. It is unstable, breaks down quickly, which means it must constantly be replenished. Here on our planet, microbes are the producers. So if phosphine is truly on Triton, then something may be creating it. In 2021, NASA's Juno spacecraft picked up something that caught everyone off guard. It detected a natural radio signal coming from Jupiter's largest moon, Ganymede. Now, it wasn't a broadcast from aliens, probably, but it did confirm something important. Ganymede has a massive saltwater ocean locked beneath its icy surface, larger than all of Earth's oceans combined. The radio waves were caused by electrons interacting with Ganymede's magnetic field and Jupiter's powerful magnetosphere. So what made this discovery so significant was that Ganymede is the only moon in the solar system known to have its own magnetic field. That means its interior may be warm enough and active enough to generate one. Combined with the presence of liquid water, this creates conditions that are pretty strikingly similar to Earth. The thought that a moon with its own ocean and protective magnetic field could be hiding alien ecosystems is as disturbing as it is really fascinating. Mars itself has been a focus of the search for life. Its small moon Phobos has also produced its own mysteries. In 1989, the Soviet Phobos 2 spacecraft sent back images and readings suggesting strange shadows and unexplained heat signatures on the surface. And then, without warning, the spacecraft abruptly lost contact. The conspiracy theories started being talked about. Some speculated the probe was deliberately silenced. Later studies of the Martian system revealed another unsettling detail. Methane has been detected around Mars, and its presence is still unexplained. Methane breaks down quickly under sunlight, which means it must be constantly replenished. While this may be happening on Mars itself, some researchers have raised the possibility that its moons, including Phobos, might also be playing a role here. Jupiter's moon, Callisto, has always seemed like the forgotten sibling compared to Europa and Ganymede. For years, it was believed to be, just a dead, cratered rock with little to really offer. But in 2001, scientists started to suspect something more was going on. Observations hinted that Callisto might have cryovolcanism, or ice volcanoes. Instead of spewing lava like Earth's volcanoes, these eruptions would release slushy water, ammonia, and other substances from beneath the surface. If that's true, this means Callisto may also have a subsurface ocean. If it does, then yet another moon in the solar system has the right ingredients for life. The disturbing part of this discovery is how common these conditions seem to be. Instead of life being, this rare accident, the evidence is really stacking up that habitable environments are everywhere. And we circle back to Titan, because it may be the strangest and most alien world we've ever discovered. Titan has rain, rivers, lakes, seasonal cycles. It looks eerily similar to Earth too, yet it is profoundly different. The lakes aren't filled with water, but with liquid methane and ethane. This means that if life exists on Titan, it would have to be based on an entirely different chemistry than what we know. In 2007, NASA's Cassini mission discovered that Titan's lakes and seas weren't stable. Their surfaces changed mysteriously over time. Some lakes even seemed to vanish and reappear. This caught them off guard, but it also raised the question of whether chemical or biological processes were driving these changes. Some astrobiologists have theorized that Titan could host methane-based life forms, creatures that breathe hydrogen and exhale methane. Mars is one of those planets that just won't stop teasing us. Between all the rover missions and satellite images, NASA's gotten a ton of data about the red planet, and yeah, some of it's pretty bizarre. Over the years, there have been some oddities people have pointed out, and some of them have even led to conspiracy theories about NASA possibly trying to cover stuff up. People have pointed out odd rock formations that kinda look like pyramids, or maybe even the ruins of a full-on city. If you ask NASA, these are just natural geological formations, but some think the space agency is just downplaying it all. So what if NASA really did find evidence of past alien civilizations on Mars? Why would they keep something like that a secret? Well, some think they're covering it up to keep control over the situation, to prevent mass hysteria. Could Mars be home to some kind of extraterrestrial life? Possibly even intelligent life? Hidden away in some secret location that's never been shown? We might just be scratching the surface with all those photos. Maybe there's more to the story that NASA's not letting on. This one's really weird. So the Black Knight satellite is an alleged alien spacecraft that's been orbiting Earth for thousands of years. Some people believe NASA knows exactly what it is, but has kept quiet about it. The conspiracy really took off in 1954, when Donald Kehoe, an American Marine Corps naval aviator, told the paper that the US Air Force had reported that 2 satellites orbiting Earth had been detected. At that time, no country had the technology to launch a satellite. But the Black Knight satellite story never went away, and it became a full-on alien cover-up conspiracy. The object is described as this artificial satellite, possibly of extraterrestrial origin, flying in orbit observing us. NASA has denied all knowledge of it, but some people point to radio signals picked up by satellites and astronauts' accounts of strange unidentified objects in space as proof that the Black Knight satellite is real. If there really is something floating around up there though, it could mean we've been under alien surveillance for a very long time, possibly tens of thousands of years. NASA's relationship with the UFOs is kind of this awkward, unspoken thing. For years, astronauts and scientists have reported seeing unexplained objects while in space. Some UFOs even make an appearance in official records, like when Apollo 11 astronauts reported seeing a flying flying saucer during their mission to the moon. NASA has always maintained a pretty grounded scientific approach when it comes to UFOs, saying things like, we don't know what they could be, but we're studying them. They never provide any solid answers though, and maybe they just really don't have any, but that's not what some people think, including some who have been to space themselves. Astronauts like Edgar Mitchell, for example, the 6th person to ever set foot on the moon. Up until his death in 2016, he was pretty vocal about his belief that UFOs and aliens were real, and that NASA knew much more than they were letting on. So what is the deal here? Are they keeping secrets about extraterrestrial visits? Do they actually not have any idea what they could be, despite all the eyes they have on the sky? What do you think? Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, is a real hotspot when it comes to the possibility of alien life. NASA spent a lot of time talking about Europa because there's something under that icy surface, an ocean that could possibly be home to life. It's an exciting idea, but as of right now, we don't really know what's down there. Or do we? Some researchers believe NASA knows much more than they've let on. Europa's ocean is considered one of the most promising places to find life beyond Earth, so why is NASA so quiet about it? Could it be they've already discovered something under the ice? Some conspiracy theorists think NASA has already found signs of alien life in Europa's oceans, but they're keeping it under wraps. The whole situation is a bit fishy to some, especially with all the secrecy and the fact that missions to Europa keep getting delayed or altered. Could NASA be sitting on a major discovery, just waiting for the right moment to drop it? In 2017, the Pentagon confirmed it had been running a secret UFO program known as AATIP, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. The revelation caught a lot of people off guard, but NASA was likely involved, at least behind the scenes. AATIP's goal was to investigate unidentified flying objects and other unusual aerial phenomena, and some believe NASA was consulted about these findings. So what do they know? Well, NASA's remained pretty tight-lipped about their role, which has only added to people's suspicions that they're hiding more than just a few UFO reports. If the government was running a secret program to investigate UFOs, it's hard to believe NASA wasn't involved in some capacity. Did they find something in those programs that could change our entire understanding of alien life? Alright, so there's this amazing video from an Afghanistan military base that's been circulating online the past couple days. In the footage, a swarm of UFOs is seen hovering outside the base, and they're completely unaffected by a missile. The video starts with a view of the flat land around the base before the camera zooms in on the distant mountains. There, 4 black dots are seen floating in the sky, and at first they might just seem like flares or training targets, but as the camera gets closer, the orbs appear to be leaking some kind of fuel or liquid beneath them. Then, out of nowhere, a short-range missile shoots across the screen and hits 2 of the orbs directly, and you'd expect them to be obliterated, but no. As the debris disperses, the orbs are completely unharmed. As the video goes on, the camera switches from infrared to normal vision, revealing something even stranger. The orbs are glowing in bright pink, orange, purple, and yellow hues, moving together in perfect synchronization. They seem to be floating in a deliberate, almost purposeful way, totally defying what we understand about physics and flight. So, what were these things? At this point, we still have no idea. Pine Gap, located in the remote outback of Australia, is officially a joint US-Australian facility used for signals intelligence, surveillance, and satellite tracking. But that's just on the surface. Beneath its top secret operations, some believe it's hiding something far more otherworldly. Some claim that there is an underground section of Pine Gap that's specifically used to store and study extraterrestrial artifacts, including crashed UFOs or UAPs, and it's also said to track them across the southern hemisphere, with a bunch of reports from locals and military personnel describing strange lights and unidentified craft flying over the facility. It's an Air Force station used for communications and intelligence support for both the UK and the United States. Menwith Hill is known to be involved in some of the most sensitive surveillance activities, intercepting global communications, which is already shady enough. But the weirdness doesn't stop here. What actually goes on inside here is top secret, and this, along with the fact that locals have reported strange stuff going on around the base, like unusual lights in the sky, unidentified flying objects zipping past the radar domes, it makes it one of the most mysterious places in the country. And some people think this place is involved in tracking UFOs and extraterrestrial activity. Some even claim the US government uses the base to store alien technology recovered from crashes. And with the base being so remote and so heavily guarded, it would make for a perfect place to hide whatever evidence might be there. Kirtland Air Force Base, just outside of Albuquerque, New Mexico, handles everything from aircraft maintenance to nuclear weapons storage, but for years, it's been associated with unexplained aerial phenomena. Strange lights in the sky and unidentified craft have been reported near the base, but what really feeds the conspiracy theories is Kirtland's role in nuclear weapons. The base stores nuclear warheads, and some believe that UFOs are drawn here because of it, possibly monitoring or interacting with the weapons. One of the most popular stories surrounding Kirtland is its connection to the 1947 Roswell incident. Many believe that the base may have been involved in retrieving the wreckage from the famous UFO crash, with the debris possibly being stored or studied there. There's also the fact that Kirtland is home to the Sandia National Laboratories, which works on advanced weapons and defense technology. Loring Air Force Base in northern Maine might not be on everyone's radar, but it's definitely caught the attention of folks who are into UFOs. The base was decommissioned in 1994, but was home to nuclear weapons and played a key role during the Cold War. During its 40 years of operation, though, there were some strange reports of UFO sightings in the area. The Loring UFO incident was a series of sightings in the 70s where military personnel reportedly saw unidentified objects near the base. According to some reports, the objects seemed to be interacting with the base's radar systems, even jamming them at times. Some believe the military may have been studying alien tech or even trying to make contact. And even though the base has been inactive for years, stories about strange activity around Loring are still reported to this day. Mount Shasta in Northern California is a mountain, not a military base. So why is it on this list? Well, because there's always been this conspiracy theory about a hidden base inside it. Some say it's not even a government-run base at all, but an extraterrestrial one. Reports of strange lights around Mount Shasta go back as far as the 40s, with people claiming to see UFOs flying near or above the mountain. And some say these craft even seem to enter the mountain itself. In 2023, something wild went down in Mexico's Congress. A well-known journalist and UFO enthusiast, a man you'll be hearing a lot about in this video, Jaime Maussan, showed up with what looked like two tiny alien bodies in glass cases. He claimed these mummified little guys were over 1,000 years old and not human. They had big heads, only 3 fingers per hand, and looked like they were pulled straight out of an ancient alien episode. According to Maussan, they were found near the Nazca lines in Peru. Naturally, people freaked out, but scientists and experts started asking questions almost immediately. The National Autonomous University of Mexico stepped in and basically said, well, we carbon dated these things, we're not saying they're aliens, and that's where things got messy. Critics argued that the mummies might just be old human remains that were manipulated to look alien, like stitched together bones from different things. So far, no conclusive proof that they're legit aliens, but this is far from the only alien-related news to come out of Mexico. In July of 1991, Mexico City was home to one of the most talked about UFO sightings in Latin America. During a solar eclipse, people across the city were filming the sky, but some of these recordings showed more than just the moon passing in front of the sun. On several tapes, there was what looked like a metallic disc-shaped object hovering in the air. The footage that got the most attention came from a man named Guillermo Aragon, a television executive. He handed it over to journalist Jaime Maussan, who helped push it into the public spotlight. Once it aired, the response was immediate. Tons of people contacted the station saying they'd seen the same thing, and more videos started pouring in, many showing a very similar object in the same part of the sky. The fact that there were multiple angles made it harder to write off as, a lens flare or a camera glitch. Even decades later, it's still considered one of the strongest mass witnessed UFO cases in history. This next one's more recent and a little more subtle, but still strange. In 2015, a video surfaced online showing what looks like an object floating motionless above Mexico City. Doesn't zip around or flash lights, it just sort of hangs there. What immediately sticks out about this thing, though, is the shape. It's been described as beetle-like. Not quite saucer-shaped, not a balloon either, definitely not the usual aircraft silhouette. The video was picked up by Scott Waring, a UFO blogger and self-proclaimed researcher who's known for analyzing sightings from around the world. He posted it on his YouTube channel and said the shape and movement, or, lack thereof, caught his attention. Of course, drones were already pretty common by 2015, so some viewers said that's probably what it was, but there is something about how it floats, kind of heavy looking, but still, I don't know, makes it hard to explain away so easily. Before the so-called alien mummies were wheeled into Mexico's Congress in 2023, they'd also made headlines 6 years earlier. In 2017, Jaime Maussan and a team of researchers presented similar-looking mummified bodies found near Peru's Nazca Lines. These specimens had the same elongated skulls, 3 fingers on each hand, and a skeletal structure that didn't quite match up with any known human remains, or so the claim went. Now, at first glance, it was the kind of thing that grabs attention. Strange-looking figures, supposedly ancient, and of course associated with the mystery of the Nazca Lines, an area already tied to all kinds of ancient alien theories. The bodies looked eerily alien, but the deeper you dug into it, the messier things got. A number of scientists and archaeologists again quickly raised red flags. They called it out as a hoax, saying these so-called aliens were likely made by combining real human bones with animal parts and synthetic material. In short, some people might have built them. It got so serious that the World Congress on Mummy Studies called this a crime on cultural heritage. They were not playing around. It wasn't just about whether aliens were real, it was about disturbing and possibly destroying ancient human remains for the sake of making a viral story. Still, there are people who believe that these were really aliens, that there was some kind of cover-up going on, which continues to go on, apparently. What do you all think, though? This one comes straight from the military, which makes it stand out from your usual eyewitness videos. In March of 2004, a Mexican Air Force surveillance plane was flying over the state of Campeche when its crew spotted something strange. Actually, 11 strange things. Using infrared cameras, they recorded multiple glowing orbs in the sky, flying at around 11,500 feet. The lights weren't visible to the naked eye, but they showed up clear as day on the infrared footage. What made this sighting even more intriguing was how the objects moved. They didn't fly in a normal pattern like a commercial or military aircraft would. Some of them even appeared to circle the plane. The pilots were clearly unnerved. The footage was eventually handed over to the Mexican Defense Department, and they decided to release it to the public. That almost never happens. Once the video was out, Jaime Maussan got involved, again calling it solid proof of extraterrestrial visitation. It became a big story in UFO circles around the world. But as always, skeptics weighed in. Their main theory was that the glowing orbs were just flares from offshore oil rigs showing up as heat signatures on the infrared cameras. Still, the pilots insisted that what they saw and recorded didn't behave like any flares they'd ever seen, and the fact that the military made the footage public gave it a lot more credibility than your typical blurry YouTube clip. No matter how you look at it, this is one of the most well-documented UFO cases out of Mexico. Kepler, NASA's exoplanet hunting telescope, got a lot of people talking when it discovered thousands of potential planets outside our solar system. But that's not all. Some scientists believe Kepler has picked up signals that could be coming from extraterrestrial civilizations. If this is the case, well, the question is, are they coming from aliens intentionally trying to communicate? Well, who knows? NASA has downplayed these things, labeling the signals as noise or interference from natural sources, but others aren't convinced. They think NASA's purposely brushing aside these signals to keep the truth about alien life hidden from the public. Maybe they just don't want us to know that we're not alone in the universe just yet, still trying to figure out how to approach the situation. Even though they're the only people to ever go to space, astronauts are kind of the last people you expect to say they've had encounters with UFOs. I don't know what it is, but there is a surprising number of reports from space missions that do suggest otherwise. Gordon Cooper, one of NASA's original astronauts, claimed to have seen a UFO during the Mercury Atlas 9 mission in 1963. He reported a glowing object that seemed to follow his spacecraft before quickly disappearing. Cooper said the craft defied our understanding of physics, that it was far beyond the capabilities of any known technology at the time. He also said there was footage of this thing that was never made public. Then there's the Apollo 14 astronaut Edgar Mitchell, who's also publicly stated that extraterrestrials are real. Mitchell even went as far as to claim that the US government has knowledge of extraterrestrial life and has covered up its existence for decades. The most famous case comes from Apollo 11, with Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin allegedly seeing unidentified objects on the moon. There are rumors that Armstrong's comment during radio transmission about, quote, seeing something out there was a reference to an encounter with a UFO, though it was quickly brushed aside. So why would NASA, who are supposed to be the first to embrace and study new discoveries, suppress such groundbreaking encounters? If astronauts keep encountering UFOs in space, what are they really hiding from us? The Smithsonian Institution is one of the largest museums in the world, housing over 154 million objects. Among these, some argue are alien artifacts, items that have been hidden away from the public eye. These artifacts are said to be kept in secret vaults, guarded by some of the most powerful institutions in the world, including NASA and the US government. The theory is that alien technology, or possibly even full-on remains of aliens, are housed here. One famous example comes from the 70s Viking missions to Mars, where some insiders claim that NASA found evidence of alien structures. According to these claims, fragments of alien technology were retrieved and then stored in places like the Smithsonian to be studied, but have never been made available to the public, of course. Now, some say the government is hiding this data to avoid panic or to maintain control over such groundbreaking information. Along with these space-related artifacts, there are other theories about strange objects found on Earth. We may never know the full truth, but the Smithsonian's massive, inaccessible archives certainly make it seem like there could be more to the story. The Apollo 20 mission is one of the most controversial and debated conspiracies surrounding NASA. Officially, Apollo 17 in 1972 was the last manned mission to the moon, but for decades there's been this rumor that there was a secret mission launched in the mid-70s to retrieve alien technology from the moon, Apollo 20. According to the story, NASA discovered this massive, ancient spacecraft on the lunar surface in the Bay of Rainbows region, and the Apollo 20 crew was tasked with exploring it. The crew reportedly found two humanoid bodies inside the ship, one alive, the other deceased, along with advanced technology that was far beyond what humanity had at the time, or even now. A man named William Rutledge, who claims to have been part of the crew, gave some pretty detailed accounts of the mission and even shared alleged video footage of the lunar craft and one of the alien bodies inside it. NASA consistently denied any such mission took place though. But the Apollo 20 theory has a loyal following. Some argue that the mission was kept secret because the discovery was part of a larger program to study extraterrestrial technology. For what purpose? Who knows? One of the most bizarre and frustrating mysteries surrounding NASA's Apollo missions is the alleged lost tapes. These are the original analog recordings of the lunar landings, including the famous Apollo 11 mission, which are said to have been erased or taped over at some point in the 80s. You're probably thinking, well, how on earth could they throw away something so historically important? Well, NASA claims it was just for practical reasons. Those tapes were expensive, they were reused for other purposes, but some conspiracy theorists believe the real reason behind the lost tapes is far more sinister. The tapes contained pristine, high-resolution recordings of the Apollo missions, including the first steps on the moon. If they still existed, they would have been priceless artifacts of human history. Instead, only lower quality copies remain, and NASA's explanation for erasing them has definitely raised more questions than answers. Was there something else on those tapes? Maybe? There have always been whispers that something was filmed during the Apollo 11 mission, something NASA didn't want the public to see. But if the tapes were really lost by accident, why did it take so long for NASA to give a clear explanation of what happened?